Hello gamers, Rever here, and I am back for another triple monitor gaming review. And you can see I'm bouncing around a bit in my airplane. Now, I turned off the sound for the purposes of this recording because it was, it's just a droning engine noise in the background, and I thought, well, you know, we probably don't need that. Look at my airspeeds over the red line. Let's cut back on the engines a bit. I had recorded the initial video, which got us to this point, and the reason that I'm re-recording is because of those same engine sounds were far more audible than my actual voice. So let me turn back the way I was coming, or started out, and you'll get an idea of how the graphics change and what it might look like. I appreciate that the smallness of the view on YouTube is probably going to be a pretty limiting factor in what you guys can see and what you can't, but we're outside of Philadelphia and we are at 2,400 feet. We are in a Aerosoft Twin Otter extended, and yeah, we're flying around, and we're doing it with triple monitoring. So to give you an idea of what's going on here, this neighborhood right here is where my bezel is on the one monitor, and this is where it is on the other side. So from here to here is what I'll call my main center monitor. And you can see I, with this particular plane, have all my gauges are very visible to me down in this area. I have a nice side view on both sides, really. This one's a little more limited because we got the rest of the cockpit in the way, but I'm sure that would be the same issue regardless of what whatever monitor setup we had. But in any event, I'm going to turn a little bit towards this other airport. Maybe see that airport right out there. Let's see if we can overfly that. So we're above the glide slope of it. You can see it's up here. Well, maybe you can. Again, it's not my fault. YouTube won't let me upload a 5900 by 1080 video, so we'll have to deal with it. But I will say this, there is some, but the negative of this is that there is some binocular vision. It doesn't really look natural when you look off to the left or right. But I will say this also is that when it's part of your peripheral vision, which is really what you kind of got to get used to a little bit with triple monitor gaming, is that, when you're looking over here, you're looking far over here directly, you turn your head to look, it's you're not going to have the same effect as when you're in your peripheral vision. And when it's in your peripheral vision, it's fine. But in my scoring system is, I really want it to look a little bit better off to the left and right when I actually look. Might be a personal preference, but that just would be nice, And the reason that I understand for this is that, in many cases, they're to try to render 5,900 by 1080, it would cause, a significant difference. So what NVIDIA Surround's doing is actually stretching out the field of view on the sides. But when I'm not going to get into the optics of the whole thing, but when you stretch that out, what ends up happening is you end up expanding it, so you end up like zooming in. Many people call that the fishbowl effect. So this definitely has what I'll call a relatively minor, though certainly livable, fishbowl effect, but that will prevent it from getting the absolute top score. So in other words, this game really isn't built for such a wide monitor. It's just not something it was, built to do. Which is, hey, this is from 2004. I don't know if there's video cards that could do triple monitoring back then. Probably was, but I don't even know that for a fact. So fact is, for a game that was made around 2004, just, happy to have what we have, to be honest with you. Let's turn a little further to the south. Why not? So that was sort of the negative and a little explanation of the fishbowl effect. I do want to, while we're even in the turn here, I want to come up here to options. I'll do this for each game, display, and talk about my settings. I'm on medium high. If I try to put it all the way up to ultra, it just kind of kills it. So really, it's a shame I have to turn the graphics down a bit, but the plus is that you get a much better view. You can see that I'm on 1590 by 1080. Not sure. A lot of these were just sort of the default settings. I really didn't go in here and change too much about anything, other than what was there. I may fiddle with this as time goes on, but at this point I'm happy to get all my controls working with the, you can see I have the FSU IPC that I use for the joysticks, and if you play Flight Sim, it can be a pretty fair challenge. I have the global FX, what do you call it, video enhancements, and the active Sky Next, like I mentioned, and or maybe I didn't mention it, but I have active Sky Next. And getting all that stuff set up was enough. I wanted to get up here and get some flights underneath me, and eventually I'll probably feel like doing it. With the triple monitor gaming, you end up doing a little extra setup stuff for each game, and I've just been kind of exploring the whole thing, see what games are doing well on it, and which is part of the reason behind this series. So you saw my video settings. Did I do anything else? No, but if you change it, you'll find it's fiddly. With it, sometimes it jumps back to like a 1920 by 1080 single view, but I can easily go back into the options and then re-change the setting to a wider one. So if I had changed any of the display settings, it seems to bring it back to that single monitor kind of view at that point. And then these two other monitors end up black. I know there's people that struggle with setting it up. I really didn't have overly many problems, especially after I kind of figured out what I was doing, if that makes sense. So, but anyway, it plays well. Absolutely happy with it. There's sometimes I get this little bit of a spinning on my cursor, and it's almost like it's something's not updating right. But you can see now it's not. Like if I were to move my cursor over a certain location, I wouldn't get the size adjustment arrows. It would just constantly be looking like a donut on the end of my cursor arrow there. Anyway, so pluses, that's what we were going to talk about. The biggest pluses, far and away. If I come up here and I do active Sky Next, you can see I've already moved it over to this side. The fact that I can put this over here is absolutely wonderful. This plane comes with a checklist. So if I come here and open up this checklist, I can set it all the way over to the right. It's not, move that guy over, Ted. These guys aren't interfering with each other, and they're really not interfering with my view, which is typically way over this direction. But there we go. I've got my checklist. As far as other views go, they can get kind of silly. What was the one? This view, you can kind of see, this is the, overhead controls in this particular airplane. And nothing, like I said, a little bit silly with what's showing up over on the sides here. But again, when you're in this view, your intention is to, turn these controls here. We can turn the lights on. Maybe that might even help in the video. I'll turn the flight compartment lights on. And let's hop back over to this other view. And there we are back. So, overall, the single biggest impact is not cluttering up this display with my other things. Like, for example, I like to keep my GPS open, just, my own personal preference. And it's kind of small for me to see down here. It's not that I couldn't see it, but, I like it a little bit bigger. I like it over here. One thing to mention is if you notice, even in the video probably, these gauges appear bigger. Well, they really kind of appear bigger when you're seeing it in full screen. So, this gauge looks like it's 4 inches wide, even though it's all the way over at the co-pilot seat. It looks, 50% bigger than this one. And that's the fishbowl effect that I'm talking about. But again, most of the time you're flying, you're looking here, and that fishbowl effect in this game just doesn't make me sick to the stomach like some other games that I've tried have. It just works out pretty well. So yeah, the biggest plus about it is being able to put stuff over here and kind of have it out of the way. It's still visible. One other thing to note, you can come up here. I'm not sure how, if you're a FSX expert, you'll know you can do this stuff anyway. But if you want to create another view, is kind of nice. Like, let's do the outside spot view. We'll move it down and around here. Let's close this guy just for the sake of it. So I'm going to shrink that up. Let's make it big so you guys have at least a chance of seeing it. You're not going to see it too well, but you know, if you just wanted to fly rather than see the view out the left-hand side there, if I just wanted to see, you know, what my airplane looked like, and that's pretty cool. You know, you're coming in for a landing or, you know, whatever the particular case is, it's pretty cool. I wouldn't need it nearly this big. You know, like if I put it about this big, it would be pretty darn nicely visible to me. You know, put it off way off to the right or the left, I mean. You know, again, I can, you know, just sort of shove it down there where I don't ever look anyway. You know, move my GPS a bit. That's really another huge, you know, that's the biggest positive, like for me anyway. So let me close this window. The other one is coming in for landings and even takeoffs when you're, especially if you're in like one of those old planes, like a, yeah, you know, a three-wheel airplane tail dragger. I guess that's what I'm looking for. You know, and you got your hood way up. Well, now all of a sudden you can see that runway right here. You know, there's just certain, this plane comes in, you know, you got a pretty good view of the runway. You can kind of see you sit up pretty high. I know that's adjustable, but, you know, if you want to be realistic about it, you know, you can't see a whole lot sometimes when you're landing a plane, especially if you have a pretty, you know, high nose up altitude. And that's not even necessarily the right way to land a plane. But just the fact that I can see out of this monitor, you know, the edge of the runway, it really makes a difference. I'm still kind of looking forward, but I'm looking over here out of the corner of my eye kind of thing. Another real big positive is that extra peripheral vision when you're doing certain things in this, you know, is great. So if you're a true 3-monitor gamer, you learn to keep your view into this center monitor. And if you're doing that when you're landing or taking off, it really makes a big difference. You know, when you keep that in your peripheral vision, you got that runway. I mean, it gives you a better, like, I don't know that I'm any better at landing, but it gives you like a better sense of like how high in the ground you are, because, you know, you sort of lose the vision of the runway, and catching the, you know, the growth of the runway as it moves from here to here, you know, really does help you gauge your distance from the ground out of your peripheral vision. So that's another big plus. Well, I don't want to ramble on too long. I just thought I'd give you the biggest pluses and minuses and show you as we're flying around here that it's, you know, it seems to work particularly well. You know, absolutely no complaints about it, other than a little bit of a fishbowl effect. So for that reason, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. You know, if you're a flight sim fan and you're considering 3 monitors, these 3 monitors cost me under $600, close to 600. So it's a fairly sizable commitment. I mean, it's no worse than my graphics card in the other computer cost 900. So, you know, I'm willing to spend some money. I have a few extra bucks, you know, for these things. And this, by the way, was my Christmas present to myself. A little earlier than I got it, but it was still my Christmas present to myself. And there you go. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care of yourselves and have a good day. Bye-bye.